We are looking at other areas pa, di inasa pwede mag-open of TTMF to accommodate the surge. Ang katong mga dili pa ma-accommodate sa TTMFs karon because waiting for vacancy, we are working with, talking to a doctors association on how they can assist us in guiding patients na naa sa balay on what to do and unsa ang mga tambal na kinahanglan nila in the event na doon na sila symptoms.
That was Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte. The city is now scouring for additional treatment facilities as they face a surge in COVID-19 infections.
Davao City now tops the list of cities with most COVID infections on a weekly basis, surpassing Quezon City's record. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Let's start with the president's hometown, Davao City, now being dubbed as the country's new COVID-19 epicenter.
The city's health facilities are already overwhelmed and can no longer accommodate more patients. Our correspondent, Jem Avasenia, is on the ground to give us some updates. Jem, how is the situation there?
Robbie, COVID-19 cases here in Davao City have surpassed 18,000 with about 244 new cases recorded just tonight. The city's main hospital, Southern Philippines Medical Center, is already full house, leaving many others unchecked in their homes.
Barangay policemen are heavily guarding a purok of Barangay Lizada in Toril as one COVID patient was waiting to be transferred to an isolation facility. In fact, results had arrived 4 days ago, but there has yet to be an available room for the patient. A barangay official bared that aside from the lack of rooms, they also lack vehicles for transporting the patients. Residents couldn't help but fear for their safety.
Nag-aalala kami. Ako, bilang barangay tanod dito sa Lizada, hindi madali yung trabaho namin magbantay sa mga ganito. Siyempre, pamilyado kami, kaya nagsusuot kami ng mask, face shield at lumalayo sa mga tao.
Nabala ka dyan, no? Kaya laminali ko na ata mga estudyante, ba?
Nag-aalala kami, lalo na may mga estudyante kami, mga bata, mahihina ang resistensya nila. Tapos kami dito sa barangay kapag ini-lockdown, paano ang trabaho namin? Paano kami makakakain?
In fact, Octa research flagged how Davao City already surpassed Quezon City's daily average in the last 7 days. From June 1 to 7, Davao recorded 213 cases, vis-a-vis Quezon City's 207.
Nangyayari yan nagsacycle yan Pag nagiging okay ng situation na ng isang LGU, then yung mga tao nakakalimutan na lang may virus pa. So hindi na sila nagiging super careful.
The recent situation resulted in Davao City being called as the new COVID epicenter. Palace spokesman Harry Roque didn't take the light with the comparison.
Well, I don't think it's a fair comparison. So sabihin na lang po natin siguro na hindi tayo po pwede magkumpara na apple to apple.
For now, Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio said they're already looking for facilities that may be converted into COVID-19 hubs.
Ang katong mga dili pa ma-accommodate sa TTMFs karon because waiting for vacancy, we are working with, talking to a doctors association on how they can assist us.
More establishments will also be placed under lockdown, including one BPO company where at least 400 employees contracted the disease.
Robbie, the city's COVID-19 death is also on the rise, now at 784. Meanwhile, Davao City's MECQ status, which is supposedly until June 20, may be extended depending upon the situation. Robbie?
Maraming salamat, Jem Avancenia. The Health Department says the spike in COVID-19 cases down south is partly due to the spread of new variants. Let's discuss that with Dr. Lair Murao, Virology Professor and Director of the Philippine Genome Center in Mindanao. Good evening, Dr. Lair.
Good evening, Robbie.
Hi, Doc, what do we know about this surge in Davao? What is driving it?
Well, that's a very complex question because actually our health situation now is driven by many factors. First, you have the people that need to feed their family and therefore they have to go to work. Then we have our culture. You know, the Filipinos are social people. We cannot just stay at home. And then there's the mentality, as mentioned earlier. The moment that the cases go down, then people feel that there's no more threat of the COVID-19. And with the ongoing vaccination, then people feel that there's less threat on COVID-19. And then finally, we have the government interventions. So are there less restrictions on the public health protocols? And of course, another important factor is the virus. Is the virus changing and acquiring qualities that allow it to spread more? So that's something that we also have to look into.
Is there any particular variant of concern that you're looking at?
Well, right now we don't have much. There's data going around here in Mindanao that there are variants of concern already circulating in various regions of Mindanao. But we need to get robust data on these variants. We need more data to be able to associate them with the increase in cases.
Okay, now speaking of data, kumusta naman po ang biosurveillance capacities ng Davao at saka para sa buong Mindanao? Everything from contact tracing all the way to our ability to track the genome of whatever is spreading there.
Yeah, in terms of testing, there is already an increase in number of testing centers in the Philippines. In fact, around 15% of the COVID laboratories in the country are present in Mindanao, and there has been an increase since the past year. So in terms of
We apologize for the technical difficulties. That was Dr. Lair Murao, Director of the Philippine Genome Center in Mindanao. Just how serious is the COVID-19 situation in Davao? Let's take a look with tonight's big number, 44%. This is how much average daily cases in Davao City grew in the past week compared to the previous one. The city tallied an average of more than 200 new infections per day. That overtakes the cases in Quezon City. Okta Research says this qualifies Davao City as a new COVID-19 epicenter in the country.
These are the other big stories tonight. As government eyes to augment the country's vaccine stockpile by 60 million for the younger population, the Food and Drug Administration clears Pfizer shots for those aged 12 to 15. Was FEU football player Keith Absalon just collateral damage in the landmine blast in Masbate? His cousin, a labor leader, was believed to be the target of the attack. And Manny Pangilinan has officially handed the reins of PLDT Smart to Panlilio at a time the telco giant is at its peak. These big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Malacanang wants to impose hefty charges against people intentionally spreading COVID-19. This comes after a bar in Cebu City went under fire for hosting a mass gathering. Camille Samonte with the details.
Investigations into the mass gathering incident at a Cebu City bar are underway. Over the weekend, customers partied without face masks and barely any physical distancing. A heavy downpour forced customers to cram together in the roof area of the establishment. The bar management has been issued a show cause order to explain their side. The health department has already reiterated that parties are still banned, but Malacanang is looking at heavier sanctions against violators, including murder and homicide charges. Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo wants this imposed against those who willingly disregard protocol and end up infecting others.
Pero kung alam niya po, pumunta siya sa isang lugar, alam niyang may sakit siya ng coronavirus, at nakahawa siya at namatay, ay yan po ay talagang sadyang pagpataya. Papasok po yan sa murder sapagkat intentional.
President Rodrigo Duterte argued that reckless imprudence would be the best complaint against these persons. Still, the president isn't ruling out murder.
If he knows that he is sick with COVID-19 and he goes about nonchalant, papasyal-pasyal ka lang dyan, you are, maybe if it is intentional, malayo yan, pero it could be murder.
But for the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, criminalizing COVID-positive patients for intentionally spreading the virus would be difficult to prove.
The intention to kill and the knowingly spreading the virus has to be proven, and that is very difficult. So it may be theoretically possible, but practically impossible.
Attorney Domingo Cayose believes clear and consistent protocols are better approaches to prevent a surge in COVID-19 infections. He adds that filing criminal charges should be served for exceptionally hard-headed individuals with malicious intention. For News 5, Camille Samonte, We Are One News.
The Food and Drug Administration has amended Pfizer's emergency use authorization, allowing its vaccine to be used on those aged 12 to 15. But the Health Department said children will not be vaccinated anytime soon due to limited vaccine supply. The palace meanwhile clarified that Sinopharm's EUA will only cover the vaccines donated to the country. In other words, it will take effect retroactively. Some of those shots were given to President Duterte and his security detail.
EUA was granted for the 1,000 donated. Kasi specific po yung EUA na it was for the donated Sinopharm. So kung mag-aangkat pa po ng mas marami, I think a separate EUA will have to be given to the entity na mag-i-import po niyan.
Time for an extra's look at some of the day's big stories. The IATF is considering the resumption of indoor activities in sports or tourism venues like gyms and museums, but only at a limited capacity. Trade Secretary Juan Lopez told One News Agenda that the task force's technical working group will be releasing new guidelines for indoor activities on Thursday. The Labor Department is considering to increase the cap on deployment of healthcare workers to 10,000. This as nurses cry foul against the reimposition of the deployment ban for the sector after this year's 5,000 ceiling has been reached. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello said they're still studying the move as they want to avoid a shortage of healthcare workers in the Philippines in the middle of a pandemic. And the CPP-NPA takes full responsibility for the landmine blast that killed football player Keith Absalon and his cousin Nolven, a labor leader. The CPP and NPA expressed deep remorse over what it called errors in the military action mounted by an NPA unit. Labor group Centro has earlier condemned the NPA, saying weapons of war have no place in roads used by civilians.
Business leader Manny D. Pangilinan has officially stepped down as president and CEO of PLDT Smart. He handed the reins over to Al Panlilio at the firm's 2021 annual stockholders meeting today.
I now lay down my charge. I will continue to be your chairman, and as such, I will always follow the affairs and fortunes of our company with profound interest. It has been an unparalleled privilege to have served you and this company as your CEO. It has indeed been a remarkable walk with destiny.
Pangilinan first became president in 1998. Again in 2015, he handed over a company at peak performance, with the telco posting record high service revenues for 2020. It says it will spend between 88 to 92 billion pesos in capex this year, mostly to expand its 5G network. But the telco is facing new competition from Dito Telecommunity as well as from smaller upstarts like Converge. Panlilio says he has three key priorities as CEO.
We need to operate efficiently. We need to innovate, continue to innovate, and we need to improve our customer experience. And if there was one area that we should be world-class in, it should be customer experience. We want to push digital as a way to really interface and engage with customers.
Although unfamiliar to many, Yuka Saso has made headlines time and time again in golf. And with her latest triumph, Yuka made sure everyone will know about it. Let's get to know more about her in my report. Being dubbed by the Olympics as the Philippine golf phenom may put a lot of pressure. But that wasn't the case for 19-year-old Yuka Saso. She has etched herself into history, becoming the first Filipino to win the 76 U.S. Women's Open.
To all my friends and fans back in the Philippines and Japan, I'm really thankful.
Born in the Philippines to a Japanese father and a Filipina mother, Yuka moved to Japan when she was 4. Without friends and unable to speak Nihongo, her dad kept bringing her to the driving range. This led to her first love, golf. Saso grew up watching her idol, 4-time major champion Rory McIlroy. The former world #1 congratulated Yuka after her win.
I started watching him when I was 13. I wasn't really expecting him to notice me, so I'm really happy.
By age 9, Yuka and her family went back to the Philippines to follow her dream of becoming a professional golfer.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for my family na dami po nilang sinakripisyo para sa akin. So, we gotta move on and focus on my next tournament.
During her winning match, many were impressed with her composure and seeming sense of calm amidst the pressure. After all, it's no easy feat to recover from double bogeys.
I just trusted the process.
What were you telling yourself when you approached the sudden death layoff?
Always win. Always win. Yes. Okay, yeah. Always win. I watched it on movie. You know the movie 3 Idiots?
Her historic feat more than impressed fellow national athletes turned golf enthusiasts, including our very own basketball and volleyball phenoms.
Pasok ba siya sa definition ninyo ng phenom? At bakit?
Meron pa bang more than phenom? Baka dun siya pumasok.
Seeing Yuka at a very young age, na very composed, playing with world-class golfers, talaga namang as an athlete, magiging proud ka talaga sa kanya.
Phenom or even more, Yuka's hard work, resilience, and humility has certainly inspired many to take up the sport.
She's a hero to most little girls and even though all of us adults, no? But most especially in the little girls that aspire to be like Yuka.
With the win, Yuka jumped to number 9 in the world rankings, solidifying her spot in the Olympics. She'll be focusing on several tournaments before the Summer Games. Gretchen Hall, We Are One News. Time for another quick break. When we return, it's the presidency or nothing for Senator Ping Lacson. But as early as now, he's ruling out a possible run under the Isang Bayan ticket. And days before its Netflix premiere, Philippine-made animated series Trese stirs up conversation over its vandalized billboards. The details on that next.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. More names are being floated on the run-up to the presidential and vice presidential post in 2022. Let's get the details in this report by Mean Los Baños.
No Duterte-Duterte tandem in the 2022 elections. This has been made clear by Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte in a text message to News 5. Sara added that no less than President Duterte believes she's not fit to be president because she's a woman. Some Filipinos disagree, however, as Sara continuously tops surveys on preferred presidential candidates. But for critics, electing yet another Duterte into the top post is the worst manifestation of a political dynasty. Sara's potential running mate, former Defense Secretary Gibo Chodoro, came to her defense.
She's an independent person. Right now, what we really need is a young leader, an inspirational leader who has a lot of confidence of the masses.
Another official mulling to vie for the highest post in the land is Senator Panfilo Lacson. It's a go big or go home scenario for Lacson, as his plan B is retiring from politics altogether. Back in 2004, Lacson joined the presidential race but lost to ex-President Gloria Arroyo. For now, the senator said he wants to focus on more pressing matters before making a decision.
Wala ko appetite. In fact, sabi ko, pati yung pagbalik sa Senado, kasi meron pa ako isang term, hindi ko na kinokonsidera pa.
Lacson also revealed that Senate President Tito Soto is considering to run for vice president. This could put Soto up against both Chodoro and President Duterte, who the ruling PDP Laban is pushing to be their vice presidential candidate. Soto has said that if Lacson will ever decide to run for president, he will surely be his running mate.
Ang isang natutunan ko kay Senate President, huwag mo i-mind yung competition. Kung papasok tayo, wag na nating i-mind yun ang list of our concerns. Dapat, ang tanungin lang natin sarili natin, gusto pa ba natin maglingkod?
If Lacson pushes through with his presidential bid, it is surely not with Isambayan. Lacson has formally declined the opposition coalition's offer to include him in its list of presidentiables. Isambayan is set to release a list of possible candidates for the presidential and vice presidential posts on June 12. Among those considered in the lineup are Vice President Leni Robredo, Senators Grace Poe and Nancy Binay, Mayor Isko Moreno, and former Senator Antonio Trillanes. Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News. Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. The World Bank expects the Philippine economy to grow slower than expected this year. The Philippine Star reports that the multilateral downgraded its 2021 growth forecast for the country once again to 4.7% from a previous projection of 5.5%. This is lower than government's target of 6 to 7% growth. That cut in outlook comes alongside a slight uptick in Philippine unemployment numbers. More than 4 million Filipinos were jobless in April as Metro Manila and nearby provinces reverted to stricter lockdowns. The April unemployment rate at 8.7% is higher than the 7.1% recorded in March. Business World reports that economic managers see this as a temporary reversal of gains during the first quarter. And this from News 5, a police officer assigned to the PNP Aviation Group based in Clark, Pampanga, was shot dead in Tarlac this morning. The victim, identified as Police Senior Sergeant Michael Mon, was on board his car when another vehicle suddenly overtook him. He was then shot several times by two unidentified suspects. The Tarlac police are now conducting investigations into the shooting incident.
Film actress Liza Soberanos finally addressed criticisms against her dubbing in the much-awaited Netflix adaptation of Trese, made by Budget Tan and Kadjo Baldissimo. Liza will be the Filipino voice of the lead character, Alexandra Trese. She told fans how she did everything possible to prepare for the role, from obtaining and reading all Trese issues to undergoing a self-imposed Filipino-only policy at home for 2 weeks straight.
I was kind of hesitant because, of course, it's something that I'm not used to doing. I didn't want to fail, of course, and I didn't want it to go bad because the story is so nice and promising. And I also read the comics too, and I really just wanted to do justice to the character.
5 days before its June 11 premiere, Trese's billboards also stirred conversation. The billboards appear vandalized. Netflix even asked what kind of monsters would do this. But netizens are convinced it's actually a genius meta publicity stunt. Speaking of comics, Marvel unveils its new heroine, Filipino-American Ariel Agbayani, an iteration of Steve Rogers' Captain America. Alyssa Wong created Ariel alongside Jody Nishijima. Ari is reportedly a college student fighting for justice in her local campus. She will appear in the 4th issue of the United States of Captain America series in September. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
Partner, I'd just like to congratulate you for getting yourself jabbed.
No, I feel very good. Wala namang side effect and most importantly, nakakuha ng appointment.
Ang galing mo naman kasi ako nung nagpabakuna na rin ako, first dose. So both of us are covered, A4 na ngayon.
Sinovac,
Oo.
wala namang problema.
Eh, sa akin, ang sakit ng ulo ko. Tapos talagang di ako nakatayo for the whole night.
Ako wala, inaantay ko talaga pero wala. They said, iba-iba talaga yung ng mga tao, so swerti-swertihan lang. But ang mahalaga, if you have the opportunity, go get that shot.
And it feels different. It feels good to be confident now. But we shouldn't be too confident. But get yourselves jabbed. That wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News. Have a good evening.